Hi, this is Rahman Sheikh. Welcome to Fortnightly Railway Transportation Systems podcast. I am the host and railway systems specialist working in this industry for 24 years and counting. This podcast is primarily focused on railway experts who have vast amount of experience and contributed greatly to this amazing industry. This is not a technical seminar but focuses on feel good stories, individual journeys, their success and failures, motivating younger generation to kickstart their career in railways and creating a sense of pride for the railway people who devoted their lives on the most environment friendly public transportation. Our guest for this fortnight is Mark Quintana, Director of Business Operations, Pure Advisory. Mark started his professional career with Hayes, United Kingdom. After working for 6 years in United Kingdom, Mark migrated to Australia and started working as a senior manager in constructive recruitment. In December 2012, Mark founded a company called Tactix with his industry colleagues and later worked as a principal consultant in Phoenix Rail Systems. Pure Advisory is supporting the civil and rail engineering sectors, supplying technical systems engineering, systems assurance, and human factors engineers to companies delivering infrastructure projects across Australia. Mark has over 22 years' experience in senior business development and leadership roles. His track record demonstrates strengths in innovation and thought leadership. He aims to develop compelling service propositions and build long relationships with clients. Hi, Mark. Welcome to Railway Transportation Systems Podcast. Thank you for joining and agreeing to discuss the most hot topic in the market, which is recruitment.
Thanks very much for inviting me, and I think I can agree with you on that at the moment.
Mark, before we kick off, can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah, of course. My professional career, I did a degree at Swansea University, a degree in languages and politics. Then at that point, couldn't actually decide what industry to go into. And back then, I think a lot of people were keen and exploring the world, and it was something that you sort of just did. So I went off and spent several months traveling around the globe, and I ended up in Australia working for a communications company actually for about 12 months and thoroughly enjoyed it. We were sort of at the forefront of supplying sort of low-cost email, faxing, international telephone calls to the backpacking community. So it was great fun, and I wanted to stay, but due to visa restrictions back then, I had to return to the UK. My ultimate goal then, once I got back, was I wanted to sort of really find a way to get back to Australia. And I thought, well, how about I join, a global business? And I think a colleague of mine said at the time, why don't you get into recruitment? And you often hear about recruitment consultants that they actually fell into the industry. They never actually set out to be in it. And that was pretty much my story. So I managed to find myself an opportunity with Hayes in the UK, in London. And I managed to find a position recruiting effectively tradesmen and labour hire. That was how you sort of cut your teeth in the industry with Hayes. So I did a fair amount of that, and I did that across Victoria in London. I managed teams in the Docklands area in East London during the financial boom when all the major towers were being built. And then I got to a point where I'd asked for a recommendation from my manager to put me forward to relocate to Australia. And so I did get that opportunity in 2003, and I ended up taking on a management role with Hayes in Sydney, which had obviously ultimately been my goal. So I was part of a construction and engineering team in Sydney, and that was great fun for a couple of years. There was a real boom back then in sort of 03, 04. They'd had the Olympics in 2000. There was a lot of building, a lot of construction, and it was just a lot of work and a lot of infrastructure. So it was a buoyant market and therefore, profitable for if you were in it. And I ultimately was headhunted to work for another company called Constructive Recruitment, and they wanted me to set up a rail business stream for them. So rail was sort of coming into the market in terms of recognition, because as far as I was aware at the time, roads was a big investment piece for the government, and so we thought there was an opportunity to grow a business stream. So that was really my sort of start in the rail industry back in 2007, and then I got a sort of a taste of working in sort of a small business environment, and I felt then, why not give it a shot and start up my own business? So that's what I did from about '08 onwards, and that evolved. And then I was approached by two industry colleagues to form another organisation by integrating my own, and that became Tactix, and that became a sort of a consultancy environment. So we obviously had a resourcing model, but there was a genuine management consultancy business there as well. Again, I probably got itchy feet and decided I want to go again and do purely for myself, and that's where I set up Pure Advisory. So that was based locally and for a time in the UK. So I was supporting the industry in the UK with subject matter experts across the areas you've alluded to. Phoenix Rail Systems were a business that were across that piece, and they also wanted to break into the Australian market at the time. So they asked me, would I be interested in revisiting my contacts in Australia, having left there about sort of 12 months before. So I helped them strategize, get a business plan together, and ultimately open the doors as they had a control system, a product that they wanted to get to market. So it was really quite an exciting time for me then. But ultimately, again, in the background, I knew I wanted to come back to Australia. So I returned in 2021, and now here I am back growing Pure Advisory. We're supporting, obviously, the industry, as we've said. We sort of offer that interim consulting support across the industry, mapping sort of market surveys around, actually where these skill sets are, how we can develop the cross-market pollination of, for example, mining into rail, really sort of trying to come to some sort of a solution as to how we can solve some of the lack of talent we have to pull from.
Great introduction, Mark. Great. I was about to ask, apart from the beautiful beaches and weather, what instances made you migrate to Australia, but you pretty much answered. So I'm really glad that you're loving the country and the job. I was slowly moving into the seriousness of this topic and into the area of your expertise. What do you think recruitment, I know, is not easy because I have been in a hiring manager role myself a couple of times.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the differences you observed in recruiting people in the UK and Australia, and also the difference between rail industry and other industry?
Yeah. So look, I mean, when I was recruiting in the UK, obviously that was some sort of 12 years, 15 years ago. But back then it was very basic in its process. I mean, we had a computer that had a database that, didn't really have any real functionality. It was like a modern day phone book that held numbers and names. That was really what you were working towards. So it was a lot more phone based process. And you really did have to work for your successes, referrals. And I think although it was basic in the actual tools of engagement, there was still more regulation. There was an act, I believe, there was a recruitment act that so there were some guidelines, and you could have a career path in recruitment in the UK. And I think, that really sort of gave a professional approach from people, because they recognized it wasn't just an opportunity to jump in, make some money and go in a different direction. You really were, certainly the global businesses wanted to invest in you, and make when you went to market and discussed candidates with clients, that you really understood what you were doing and the best practice and the way you should do that. And I suppose one of the main differences coming over here in Australia is I think that it's a lot more relaxed, and you can put the environment obviously down to be more relaxed, but I think that it's very much less process driven, and that's the way I see it. It's less process driven. You still have data protection to deal with and those types of things, but you certainly seems to be a lot more relaxed. So I would say that's probably one of the main differences I've seen since having been over here as well. The other one of the main differences I would say to you is the actual resource pool that we're working from. I mean, we both know that immigration has been a big discussion point both in all countries around the world, but UK's policy, I think, has allowed, a more fluid, shall we say, entry point for additional resources into the country. And we didn't seem to be as constrained about, where that next engineer, or at that point a carpenter or a tradesman, was coming from. Whereas over here, we've had to deal with a quite, stringent policies. I remember it wasn't that easy to get here myself, let alone, bringing engineering skills here. So I think we've made it difficult. And I think at the same time, we've seen the volume of work come to market, and we've also had sort of a bit of a stagnant numbers of people coming coming into the country. And that's where we've come to now. We're just unable to really deliver what the government wants. And I think it hasn't helped because all the work's come to market at very similar time rather than having sort of delayed it, shall we say, so we didn't have all this overlap.
Well, this looks quite complex. And do you guys or do your recruitment teams, not just your company, all companies put together, in any format, do you put your concerns to the government to relax immigration rules because we're suffering from this huge resource scarcity?
Not specifically. I think personal experience, and we spend a lot of time in that sort of educational piece, more so in the private sector ultimately, because I think, the work has now really been put to market and, it's almost a little late for us to go to government. I think now the onus is on the private sector to go, right, what are we going to do? And I had a thought about this the other day that I've written pieces in the media about, pool skill scarcity. And this has been going on for years, 10, 15 years. So I think it comes down to educating clients as to when they're going to bid process, do they genuinely look at where they're going to pull their resources in from? Because I don't necessarily hear that is the case. I think we go to market and win the work, and then we decide how we're going to set it up in terms of skills. And that's obviously why, from a business perspective, we come in and support those companies ultimately.
Yeah, we're really glad for having people like you. Moreover, you working in this discipline or industry for around 22 years. How has this field of resourcing evolved over the years? And what are the major challenges you face, particularly in your current role today?
Yeah, look, good question. I think the main advancement and is social media technology. It really is a game changer in how we interact with the market, with our clients, with our candidate. And I think really now it's about, how we embrace that, how we ourselves integrate with it. And we can see already the benefits of AI and streamlining recruitment processes. And, that's freeing up consultants, I think, to be able to really focus on, the bottom line and being able to generate revenue. And I think we don't even know how far this is going to go. It's such an open book in terms of AI technology, but it's something that, we're spending a lot of time making sure that we're researching and we're really making sure of, developments as they happen and trying to stay on top of them and benefit ultimately from them. In regards to your question about challenges, I think, we talked about the resource pool. I think the main concern, we know the work is there. It's how are we going to come up with this solution? Are we going to look at government? Can they look at the visa process and how that can be evolved into a more streamlined setup? You see graduate programs left, right and centre across, all the major businesses at the moment. And I think the question there I think that's great value add for these companies. We're a little bit late in the piece for me. I think this, as I say, this has been a discussion point for 15, 20 years. And I think with all this work online now, graduate programs are fantastic. But I think, we've still got work to deliver, right? We still have things to do now. And I think that is concern is that, you look at the market today and I think we know there aren't enough people. So we have people from the mining sector, coming in, for example, and they're looking to upskill themselves into rail. But it's going to be a real challenge to actually deliver this work at the moment. And you can't rely on graduates or 1 or 2 years experience to get us across the line ultimately. So that's the major challenge.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Beautifully answered, Mark.
Yeah.
That's why in my other podcast as well, I keep on focusing on mentorship, training, skill set and competency development. The answer you have given to this question, I got a linked question. Particularly, it's not really about retention, but what we have discussed is in this tight market where there is quite an imbalance between supply and demand. What trends you have seen over the last 10 years in this decade in terms of employees and their desire to commit to long-term employment with a particular organization? Because I see people jumping the boats quite often.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I think back in 2000, 2010, I commented in Rail Express that you would see people with 5, 6, 7 years commitment to companies, and they really were embedded in the company culture, and they really wanted to climb the ladder within those businesses. And as you rightly say, it's not a particularly long period of time, and here we are with people jumping ship after 18 months. 2 years really for us seems to be on average now. That seems to be deemed commitment. But I do allude back to our earlier discussion about the fact that it's very much in the candidate's hand now, because they know they are in high demand, and therefore they can really control their futures in many respects, and it's being set up. So with that, it is becoming broken salaries, of course. Also, any consultants that work on a day rate basis, you see the rates are climbing up, and that obviously causes a problem to the end user. So it's a very, very tricky situation, and I do believe that there's a bit of a vacuum potentially coming here, because you're seeing people not really getting a foothold in the industry. That's my perspective. I think if another mining boom coming up in 3 years, they'll probably leave the industry and jump into the mining boom, because there's more money there, there's more opportunity, and I do blame a little bit of this on the social media and the world we live in now, because everybody wants in some respect to win today rather than tomorrow, and they want to get to the end as quick as possible. Whereas I think traditionally, we've gone through a process of learning, and I think that again is an educational piece that's dependent on the company that you work for. But it's a massive challenge.
It is. So what I hear from you is money is playing quite a key role.
Yeah, money, and I think I would say there's a lot of iconic projects, of course, within the Sydney Metro portfolio, and that is a real draw card. People like to have that on a resume as a tick in the box that I worked on that particular project, and you completely understand that. But it is very much now, once you've done a project, where's the next project? And if that happens to be with a different organization, then I'm going there. There's no sticking around, and that is the environment we're in now.
Beautiful. How many times have you ever faced people coming to you and asking for a job which has more flexibility and a good culture?
Out of those two, I believe that the flexibility question, this hybrid working, is definitely, since COVID, the prominent one there for sure. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that we've had situations where the opportunity is presented. If it's not 4 days hybrid, then that person won't take that engagement. It is such a changed environment we work in that respect. But that's difficult to build a culture, of course, as well. So when companies are growing, such as ours, it's difficult to have everybody in a hybrid environment, because they're not in touch with what the business is doing internally, because they're not just not in the office, and that's a challenging one. And also we're seeing a lot of work being outsourced overseas because of the lack of resources, so that's another piece. So it's an interesting time.
Amazing answers, Mark. Thanks for your insights. With so much of experience in recruiting field, I would like to ask you a $1 million question, very important, or basically a secret of success for applicants. What strategies you do employ to attract top talent in a competitive job market?
Yeah, well, it is $1 million question. I don't profess to have the absolute answer there, I think. But I can only speak, as I say, from what we do. But I think we go back to social media platforms, employer branding. I think that's a start. A Yukon, LinkedIn, and if we talk about the transport space there, I see always the same organizations that are promoting themselves. They're creating a sort of almost an online culture, their values, their unique selling points, they're having commentaries, engaging discussions, and that I believe is what is a real significant plus point for those firms. I think they will gain an edge. You have to be visible, and an advert on, say, Seek or on one of those job boards now isn't going to be enough to gain traction. You really have to make some hard yards in this social media business. But aside from that, some of the things haven't changed over the years. Competitive remuneration and benefits. We talked about the hybrid work situation. That has to be there. That is a discussion point. But we do a lot of market research ourselves, particularly on the salaries and the consulting rate. And you have to be competitive. And I think historically, companies were going, well, we've got this project, we've got that project. Therefore, it's more of they were trying to sell the project over the salary that might not necessarily be the top salary in the market. But I think now you really do have to benchmark the skill sets, be on top of that. And then sometimes you may have to add that 5% on top. You may need to add that little additional just perker, if you like, to the salary. So that just makes everybody feel good, particularly the consultant or the candidate. And I just have to stay relevant to the salaries. I think that's the key.
Beautiful. There's a linked question, if you don't mind. So when you spoke about social media and the profiles, what I have personally seen is some candidates' CVs are brilliant to read, but the candidate himself does not have the potential when you go through interview. And there's other way around as well. There are some really smart engineers and they can deliver amazing projects, but they are very bad at writing this LinkedIn or their CV. How do you find such candidates and bring them on board?
Yeah, no, look, it's a good question. Well, look, I think the straightforward answer there is you've got to obviously look beyond the profile or the resume that's submitted. I think, technology allows us to Zoom and to Skype. So I think, that's obviously our first port of call. I think also in many respects, it's a very small, as you know yourself, industry. There is a lot of occasions where, somebody will know somebody who will know somebody. And I think a lot of clients out there rely on the reputation of people through industry colleagues, and that's a known fact. And that really does sort of almost reference somebody for you straight away, correct? But look, I think we also offer advice around improving resume presentation if that's required. I think that's important, as you say, as well. And that's not always, as you say, a strength of somebody. But we've had that on a few occasions, to be fair. And look, that first resume, if it isn't right, we'll quite often say, look, can you go back? Can you consider this template, for example? And they'll go away, redo the resume, and then we can actually have a sort of formal discussion about that. So it's fairly straightforward in that respect.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, thank you for guiding them. And when we're talking about scarcity, I want to talk about scarcity in scarcity, especially women in engineering. We know there's lots of scarcity and we're promoting women in engineering. If any client comes to you to hire a woman engineer, how are you looking into that? Is that easy to find a woman in engineering?
Well, no, I think we both know it's extremely difficult. I think you look around the market, I look at some of the photos that go on LinkedIn and, companies that are award ceremonies, the female sort of participation in there is minimal. It still is. I know that a lot of companies want quotas. They want to see, a percentage of in the long list of candidates with female participation. But I think the reality is you see a lot of promotion for it, but it's never been deemed really maybe a sexy industry to be involved with. I think you could probably say that. Yeah. And, it's much like the construction industry. I think that's probably seen a bit of a foothold from what I can see, but that's taken a lot of time. There is no short, quick fix to this situation. And I think, importantly, I deal with a lot of senior management across the industry, and there needs to be more females in those decision-making roles. And I constantly have discussions with business owners about that and why there aren't. And I still don't really get satisfactory answers to that problem. Apart from, obviously, we've got low numbers, but there are still some really, really good consultants and engineers out there that really deserve their place at the top table.
I agree. I completely concur with your analysis. Really, we need women in the leadership roles, and they quite think very different to men.
Yes.
Now, you, after doing all this hard work, thanks for that. Looking ahead, what do you foresee as a future trends and challenges in the field of resourcing? And how do you plan to adopt and stay ahead in this dynamic landscape?
Yeah, good question. Look, I've felt this for some time. I believe, and without sort of repeating what we've already spoken in regards to the deficit of engineers, I believe while the upskilling, while the graduate programs are in play, I believe that the freelancing, the consultant pool, that is an area where we're going to see these companies dipping into. We're seeing a definite uptake in those areas. And I think that's not only locally or interstate. I believe that's we're already going to be internationally, as we're already doing that at the moment with certain clients. Again, as an educational piece and of engaging consultants who are working internationally for projects in Australia. But again, rather than having to go through a visa process, rather than having to go through the cost of bringing people over, it's another solution to delivering work with the right management oversight here locally, of course. But as I say, I think that freelance consulting pool is going to be hard pushed over the next few years. And again, we're going to see rates. That's the challenge, is the rates for consultants, that they're to go up. That's the only one way I can see that. That'll be the impact, shall we say, of that. But yeah.
Thanks, Mark. I know your field is not easy, as I said earlier, but your strategies and plans hopefully will help you achieve your goals and make your clients happy. I wish good luck for you with your enormous, gigantic task. Last question of the day, Mark. What's your one piece of advice to our listeners, especially for those job-seeking applicants?
Yeah, job seeking. Look, I think I think it's a fantastic time to be in this industry, in the rail industry. We've seen it, in the doldrums, and with all this investment, we've talked about iconic projects online. It is a great time to be in it. I just think they need to stay informed, keep learning, embracing new technologies, understanding, what portfolio work is coming to market, what value they can add within their skill set, and continuing that sort of professional development line. That's really, really important, and ultimately becoming an attractive proposition for sort of any of these organizations that are looking to deliver this work.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time. And I think this episode will definitely help a lot of applicants how to pursue or how to step up the ladder.
Thank you very much.
I believe everyone listening to this podcast has got something to take away from today's discussion. If you like this podcast, please listen, follow, and share this podcast within your network. If you believe we should be sharing your story or someone within your network, there is a railway leader who should be here sharing his or her contribution to this industry, contact me on railwaytransportationsystems@gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. See you next fortnight. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourself.